So, welcome, Latoya. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and thanks for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, when I heard your story and about your business, I knew it was a no brainer for you to share your story with everyone else, particularly women. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, talking with women, particularly entrepreneurs, is that each one of them have a different path. And I think um, the path in terms of what you've done, technically and financially is important, but also those traits underneath that path are also important as well, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today and to find out more about you and about your business and what route you took to create this path and to discover that this was your passion. So, for those of you who are new, this is Latoya, and she's going to talk a little bit more about her business um, and about her and her journey here. So, if you can tell everyone about first of all, what is the name of your business and um, what was your path in getting here to Philadelphia?
Okay, it's gonna be a long story. um, my path, I believe, um, it it's perpetually on a changing. It's constantly changing, and I'm still on a journey right now. Um, I'm more than happy to share that journey, you know. Um, and where it all started and where I am now and what I look forward to, some of my goals in the future. And hopefully, that can inspire, empower somebody else, especially women, along their path and their unique journey as
Right.
well. Um,
And what is the name of your business?
the name of my business is The Natural Hair Doc.
Okay, the Natural Hair Doc.
Mm-hmm.
Great name.
Thank you.
Because we all need a doctor for our natural
Yes,
hair, that's
yes,
for sure,
yes.
whether we know it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't always start out as, doing hair. You had a completely different career. So tell us about that.
Yes, I did. So I started out my career as a science teacher. I graduated college in 2003 and I started teaching at the age of 21. I taught in Jamaica for about 11 years before migrating to the United States. Um, During those 11 years, you know, um, I gained a lot of experience in the classroom. I taught a wide cross section of students, um, ranging from seventh graders up to 12th graders. My focus was mostly secondary level education, and in Jamaica, our education, our secondary education starts at the 7th grade through to 12th grade. So that was where my focus was, but you know, I upgraded my education level from diploma up to the master's level. So by the time I came here, I had already have attained a master's degree in science education and taught on multiple grade levels.
Okay. And what made you decide to leave Jamaica?
Um, I thought that coming here would have provided much better opportunity. Um, more so financial opportunities. I grew up, I was born and raised in Jamaica, humble beginnings. Some people would say, Jamaica is low socioeconomic background or poverty and all of that, but I prefer to say humble beginnings because I wouldn't say poverty is what defined us, as a people. We were always, very resourceful, very resilient, and despite whatever the situation is, whatever challenge is, we find a way to make it happen. you know.
I find that remarkable. You said resourceful and resilient, two traits that I think are really important, not only for women to have, but as an entrepreneur. So that resourcefulness, that resiliency, is that something that was instilled in you from childhood, from your parents? Where did that come from?
I think the core of my foundation and my belief system and what gives me the strength, you know, to keep going, and the grit to keep going even when things get tough, I think is the faith, you know, and I think that comes through, you know, the exposure that I had going to church with my family, from a strong Christian background, you know, my grandparents, my aunt, my dad. I think that foundation from early, that upbringing from early, you know, stayed with me throughout. So even when my dad stopped going to church, you know, I still kept going. And those belief system, you know, was set in me, and I think that provided the strength, you know, when everything else failed, you know, to keep going. And I think on my journey, a lot of times, even when I'm not sure, you know, what route to take or what the next move will be, I just use that as my guide, you know, to let the Lord lead and direct my path. And, you know, I remember at one point I questioned, and I'm like, I'm in this career, but am I fulfilling my purpose? You know, is this what I'm called to do? Is this what you want me to do? Because even though I enjoyed the first 11 years of my career, when I came here, a lot of the expectations that I had, you know, weren't being fulfilled. There were a lot of cultural challenges. You know, it was a culture shock initially, and I had to find a way to maneuver through all of that. You know, it was an emotional roller coaster, and it was just challenging overall. There were just so many different new challenges that I didn't have to deal with before, that I was now faced with, that I had to, you know, figure out. So I questioned, you know, is this what I'm really called to do? Because it came to a point where I was no longer enjoying it. I was no longer finding fulfillment, you know. But I really loved children. I really loved science, studying science. And I really enjoy being in the classroom. But those are the external situations that impacted my career. You know, it started to take a toll emotionally on me, and then I decided, you know.
I want to pause for a second, because I think a lot of women can relate to that, where you're just feeling you have a sense of not being fulfilled, and you know something is missing. And in your case, you really enjoyed working with children, and you really enjoyed the sciences. So it wasn't the profession, the actual work, but there was still a sense of something missing. And I think a lot of women can relate to that, that feeling of something is missing. No, something's not right. And I think it's almost like, I hate to call it a rites of passage, where you go through a point where you're questioning, is this what I'm supposed to do? And you clearly went through that point. So when you were in the midst of that, and thank God you were leaning on your faith, how were you able to get a clear answer? Because I think for so many of us, we have some sort of spiritual foundation, but don't always understand when we're getting the answer or how to get an answer. So how did that become clear for you?
So doing hair was always a hobby for me. It was what I found like real enjoyment in. It just came naturally to me. And I was that person who everybody called and to do their hair. So I never really thought of it as a career path, I just thought of it as something that I enjoy doing that gives me satisfaction, you know. Um, so when I came to the States, it was hard finding somebody to do my own hair. You know, I wear my hair natural, I have locks, and I do interlocking techniques. So for a whole year, I was doing my hair on my own until I eventually found a place. I found a natural hair salon. This was in South Carolina. And you know, I would go to the salon and, you know, they'll take care of my hair, do the interlocking, which was one of the very few places around. It took me a whole year to find it. So as we were talking, you know, I shared with them that I was the one doing my hair for a year, and, you know, we did interlocking and so on. And, you know, they were amazed by that. So, you know, lo and behold, they asked me to come. So I was there just doing part-time.
Wow.
I started part-time, so I would go in the evenings and I would go on holidays, and I find myself going more and more. And I enjoy the company. I enjoy the culture in the salon. I enjoy being around those females. And I remember one day I looked around and I'm like, you know, these girls in here doing what they love to do. They're having so much fun. They seem, you know, so relaxed. And I'm like, why didn't I think about hair as a career path before? Like, this is something
You had
that
a light bulb moment.
yeah. I'm like, this is something that I enjoy doing, and I like the environment. You know, I like being around the ladies, and everybody was just relaxed and having fun. And I compared it to where I was. It was just in the classroom environment where I was at the time. It was just so tense. It's like you're walking on pins and needles all the time. It's like you always have to do all of this. There was just always something to do all the time. It was like just this heavy weight constantly on your shoulders, and it never ever ends. Like you are never able to just relax and just enjoy. It's like you're constantly on the move, on your toes all the time. And the way the system and the culture was in that environment, it took the love and the enjoyment out of something that I've always, you know, loved doing.
Right.
So it was just at that moment I was there just comparing the two situations. And I said to myself, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to quit teaching.
Right.
So I decided I'm going to do the Sisterlock training. That was 2017. So I went and did the Sisterlock training. I started doing Sisterlocks. And then...
Now, just to be clear, did you quit your teaching job before?
No, not
okay.
at that time.
All right.
No. No, not immediately at that time, but then I it was there, you know, it was conceived at that time, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna make the steps. Didn't know how I was gonna do it at the time because of my situation, because the intention was that I was on a 3-year program, and it was a yearly contract that had to be renewed. There was a possibility of an extension for 2 years, and it was understood that you go home at the end of the 3 to 5 year period. So I did the Sisterlock training, and I did my business plan, not knowing, you know, not having a real plan, just something on paper that, okay, this is how I envision the business is going to be. And I did it, and I emailed it to myself, and I just left it at that, and I kept doing hair part-time and during the summertime. And I continued teaching 2018. I continued teaching up to 2019. And my 5-year would have ended in 2020 for the teaching program that I was on. And so 2019, I decided I'm done. I can't go another year. Like I was getting like physically sick I didn't want to be in the environment. I just didn't want to be there. I didn't enjoy being there. And nobody knew that I was going through all of this because I went and performed and I did my job as if everything was okay.
Right.
I had to be in a healthy emotional state for those kids.
Right.
I couldn't show what I was going through, so I had to pretend as if I was happy. I had to pretend as if everything was okay, because those kids have enough dealing with already. These are kids from low socioeconomic situations, which I could relate to. And you don't see, when I was in school, I didn't see my teacher I didn't look at them as people I think they were people that had it all figured out and everything was good. So I had to present that to my kids as well. I had to be the source of strength for them. I had to be what they couldn't be for themselves, or what they didn't, that representation of what they weren't seeing around them.
Right.
I couldn't show what challenges I was going through, my personal challenges and all that. I had to leave that outside,
Yeah.
when walking through the door. So even up to 2019, as I shared before, I would sit in my car and wait until the very last minute, to go inside. I had to just deal with whatever I was dealing with and just leave it there. And I would pray and I would cry and, and then just walk in as if everything was okay and just go about my routine.
Just to try to get your mind right.
Right.
I mean, I think it's a lot of things you shared are so relatable for so many of us, including myself. Those, there are definitely, I think one of the things that's important, particularly as women, is to pay attention to those signs. If you're starting to feel physically sick and emotionally, unsettled and distraught, when you're about to go into this environment that is paying your bills, that's a sign. That's a very clear sign that, you may have to reevaluate things, that, this part of your life is not fulfilling you in some way, shape, or form. And so thank God you paid attention to those physical sensations and you actually made a plan. So many of us have hobbies and things that we love to do on the side, but we don't make a plan to get there. And even though you weren't able to implement it immediately, you still started to lay the foundation for this exit. One of the things I wanted one of the things that came to mind as you were talking, and I know I shared this with you before, growing up in Boston, I remember an advertisement on the train. I used to ride the subway back and forth from school, and I remember the advertisement said that the best part of your day should not be the ride home. And that really struck a chord with me, and it stayed with me all these years, because so many of us feel like that are, we can't wait to leave the office. We can't wait to leave that environment so we could, woosah. Right. And you were clearly going through that.
Yes. And it's something that not a lot of women talk about. And I say women, most, the classroom, the school environment is a lot of females, predominantly female environment. But everybody would go in and it's literally putting on a show. It's not something that is talked about publicly, but you see that people are, teachers in general, stressed out. Teachers would end up in a hospital, or they would be taking multiple sick days, or they would end up with stress fractures, or they end up even in mental institutions. So, are collapsing, or dying a heart attack, or strokes, or whatever, and at a young age. So, I look at all those things and I'm like, nobody's talking about this. Everybody's pretending as if everything is okay. Right. But you see the sign as soon as the bell ring, everybody's out. Like, nobody wants to be there, but nobody's talking about, how stressful the environment is and the kind of havoc it's wreaking on our bodies, the physical strain, how draining it is. Nobody talks about it. So I saw all of those signs, and I'm like, at the end of the day, I love my job and it provides for me, but I have 2 kids and I need to be here for them as well, because I've made so many sacrifices, and I have even sacrificed time with them, and experiences with them, to provide and to be there for kids, that are not my own physically, or biologically. They're not my kids. And I had to come to that realization that I have my own kids to live for, because in 2019, I know I would not, if I went another year, I probably wouldn't be here. So I had to make that decision that, life is too short and we need to do what makes us happy, what is going to provide that fulfillment.
And just to clarify, you were talking about you were making a lot of sacrifices for your students, and you feel kind of guilty that you were making all these sacrifices for students, and not able to be there for as much you wanted for your own.
So I had to think about them. It came to the point where, I was feeling so sick, I was feeling so drained that I'm like, if I keep on, then I'm not going to be here for my own kids, and I've missed out on so much already, and that's time that I can't take back. So I figured that, doing here will give me flexibility over my own schedule. I'll be able to spend more time with my kids, and I'll still be able to make a living and provide for them financially as well.
So it sounds like you did this really at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah. So in November 2019, I moved to Pennsylvania, and when I moved here, not November, I'm sorry, I moved here in around May, and then by the November, I rented a suite. Didn't have no clientele, but I rented a suite and decided that, but this wasn't before, I set up my website and all that stuff. And I worked at 2 different salons. I worked at one in the Northeast for about a month, but it wasn't a natural hair salon. So it wasn't, I realized after a month that, okay, this is not going to be a good fit, because the kind of services that they offer doesn't fit in with the services that I want to offer. So it just wasn't a good fit. And then I did about 2 months at another natural hair salon, and this was in West Philly. So it was a good distance from all the way up in the Northeast to West Philly. But I was there early in the morning to late at night. And I did hair there for about 2 months, and that didn't work out. And then I decided to go get a suite.
And how are you financially able to do that?
Well, when I rented the suite, because during the time that I was teaching and I was doing hair, all that money that I worked that while I was doing hair, I saved all that money that I was working part-time in the evenings, and this was I would get off work like maybe around 4 by the time the last bus came, and pick up my son, get him something to eat, stuff like that. And by 5 o'clock, like, it was just no time in between. It was but luckily everything was within a 10-minute, the drive from work to home and to pick up my kids and to the shop. Everything was within 10 minutes apart. It wasn't too far. So I lived like 10 minutes from the salon, 10 minutes from where I worked, and my kids were right in the same community as well. So I was able to do all of that and then be at the salon, depending on how the day go, between 4:30 and 5. And there are sometimes I'll be there till 11 p.m. at night.
Wow.
And then the same thing.
Right.
Over and over. Yeah.
Were you scared to make that decision to leave the salon that you were working at?
Well, in order for me to stay in the country, after that 5-year period was up, it means that I had to get married. So that was part of the reason, because my husband is from here in Pennsylvania. So he was the reason why I ended up moving, because I wasn't able to find a school to sponsor.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find a school to sponsor. And a school sponsoring would mean that I would be like on a H-1B visa. And that's something that, again, it will be kind of the same situation where it's renewed yearly. And that period would have been like maybe a 6-year period.
Oh,
and
wow.
During that time there may or may not be the possibility of permanent residence, depending on whether or not the school would sponsor you as a permanent resident. So the chances of that, I did like from 2017 for the 2 years or so, like I did multiple interviews in almost every state. But by the time it comes to the point where they realize, okay, this is an international teacher, she's gonna need sponsorship, then that where it just ends right there. They'll look at your qualifications and they're like, oh, you're highly qualified, you're be the perfect fit and all of that. But by the time they realize, okay, you're an international teacher, I need sponsorship, then that's out the window.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm
So
wrong.
it was like layers of challenges all at the same time, that I was dealing with. So,
but it's almost like those challenges really opened the door or paved the way for you to start this business.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, a lot of times I think we get caught up and so saddened by all the doors that keep closing in our lives, and it seems like it seems like the end of the world, right?
At the time, I didn't really see all the connections and how everything was gonna fit together. Now looking back, I'm like, okay, so all of this had to happen to get where I am now. But at the time when you're in the situation, it's like, oh my God, like, I'm never ever gonna find a school to sponsor me. So, and if I don't find a school to sponsor me, then I won't be able to continue doing here, and I'm gonna be stuck in the classroom because that's the only way I can stay. I'm looking at all of these different scenarios, and I'm like, oh, it's never gonna happen. And then, looking back now, I'm like, okay, I had to go through all of this, to develop, even some of those same skills that I'm using now, to strengthen my faith too. Like, okay, I've been through this, I've been through that. Like, why am I being bothered now by this little small, hurdle that I need to go through? Like, you've been through all of these struggles, so.
Right. And I think a lot of us forget, like, in the midst of these struggles, that we have if we look at our past, we can see that we've overcome struggles and even many times bigger hurdles than the ones we're currently facing.
Yes.
And sometimes that's challenging to remember when you're in the midst of the current struggle. Like, that's just the ebb and flow of life. It's going to go up and down, up and down. So you opened up this new salon, didn't have any clients. How long did it take you to get clients?
So it was when I opened up that suite, when I started, when I leased that suite, I didn't realize that we were in a pandemic, or at the beginning of the pandemic. It was November 2019. So by March, all salons were closed down. So I was looking at, my salon management system, looking at the projections, looking at, how the client was growing. I was looking at those trends. And, I was looking at January and I was like, oh, not so bad. It's getting a little better. So just by touch February, things are just starting to look like, okay, I'm getting a silver lining now. Then that closed down salon. I'm like, what is this? So, and then at that time too, all that money that I came to Pennsylvania with was done, was gone, because I rented an apartment, I leased this place, and I'm getting ready to try to save. I did this in faith, trying to save that money now to pay for all of those immigration processes. Right. So, what I had left, I'm like, salon closed. Okay, so I have this amount of money. Am I going to use this to pay for my immigration, or I'm going to use this to live for the next till whenever they open up again?
Tough decision.
So, I decided that I'm going to pay that lawyer and I'm going to do this, because if I don't do this, then I'm out of the country. So, again, I did it. And those stimulus check, that was what's it
was right on time.
At first, I thought that, okay, I'm not qualified, I'm not a citizen here, so I wasn't even looking towards it. But then my son's counselor from the school, he kept calling, he kept pushing, and I keep telling him, I'm not qualified, I'm not a citizen, And the owner where I was leasing, she said, okay, we're not going to charge rent for the time that the salon is locked down. So at least I didn't have that to worry about. But she was like, oh, you're an independent contractor, but they didn't understand the whole immigration thing. So I kept saying, I'm not qualified, And I think we had a Zoom meeting, and, I said, she brought it up again, and I said, okay, let me try again. I tried again, and I got through. So all those weeks that I didn't get before, they sent all of that all at once.
Wow!
Yeah. They sent all of that. So I got that, and I started planning and preparing for when the salon reopens. So I put a lot of work into my website. Did it the right way I wanted it. All that time was time that I needed that I didn't know I needed. And I prepared my website, prepared Google, my business, all that stuff. I went on every single platform, and get established the right way, did all of those LLC documents, everything that I needed to do, bought all of those PP stuff that we needed, to prepare for, when they decided that, okay, we can go back. And so by the time it was over and they finally said we could go back, I was more than ready. And it was just a flood of clients, And my clientele just rapidly increased, like exponentially. People just, I was overwhelmed. Like there was no way I could keep up with the clients that was come.
Wow.
And then I eventually got an assistant and leased another suite. And after leasing another suite, I got another assistant. And eventually I realized, okay, all right, this 2 suites no longer gonna hold me. And we're now in our own building. So I found a building that was close by within the same vicinity. And by that time now, we're now in 2023. 2022 was when I acquired that building. I would have been in business for 2 years. I was able to get the SBA loan and all of that.
Oh, wow.
So during all of that 2-year period, got the green card, the conditional green card. Clients grew, acquired our own building now, paying mortgage. So it paid off.
Wow, and all of that happened. I'm just I'm just so amazed
Yeah.
and also inspired by your journey because, you know, a lot of businesses did not make it through the pandemic, and there were people who were really reluctant to even start businesses during that time.
Yeah.
And really, I have to believe that it was your faith that kept you going during that time, because even when you didn't have, you know, everything was shut down, you still kept working on the business behind the scenes. And I think that's really key for a lot of women to understand, is that even when things may slow down for whatever reason, whatever upheaval happens in your life, always stay in motion, stay in action,
Right.
so that you can be prepared for whatever the next opportunity presents itself.
Right.
And all of those blessings came after, when things reopened. I think, and I clearly remember when things started reopening, women were so desperate to get back to the salon, to get their nails done. Like, I just need it done right. Please rescue my hair.
Yes. And even at home, there were still challenges. You know, I had to be homeschooling my 2 kids. I had to protect their mental state, my own mental state too. You know, my older son, he went through a stage where he had panic attacks, you know, which was new. He had never before had those. I literally didn't even understand what he was going through. And that was one of the reasons why I ended up calling the counselor, you know, so, you know, to talk about, you know, what exactly was happening.
Right.
You know, and he gave us some strategies to, you know, to work through that. And then
Did it help him?
Yes.
Okay.
He still had a few, you know, but not anymore. No, not recently.
Okay.
Yeah, but during that time, they were like close together. Like he was having, you know, they were close together. And I knew it was related to that because even my younger son, he, you know, kept asking me about, I think they were looking at the news and the number of people dying, and he was always having conversations with me around that. So I had to shut out all of that, you know, like, don't look on those statistics, don't look on those numbers, you know, shut the news off. You know, even though I wanted to know what was happening and wanted update, you know, in the beginning, after a while, I realized that it wasn't good for even myself, because I'm like, if I'm depressed, and then I wasn't even thinking like, oh my God, they're looking at all these people dying. Like, in their minds, they're probably thinking like, oh, everybody's gonna die eventually. And luckily I realized, you know, like what that was doing, and, you know, I had to shut all of that out, you know, and get them involved in different things. So we started planting, doing other activities to keep them, you know, distracted away from all of that. So, and then I just focused on my business stuff, getting prepared for, you know, trying to be positive for eventually, you know, things are going to get back to normal. So, and this is what I'm going to do, you know, in anticipation of that.
Right. Now, you mentioned it briefly, but I just want to make sure everyone heard her very clearly. During the midst of this time, you actually most recently purchased your building, your business, which that's a magnificent feat. So congratulations on that, because a lot of salon owners do not own their business. They don't own the structure.
Right.
Usually they're renting or leasing, but you actually own it.
Yes.
So this is amazing. And that's all. Listen, I take my hat off to you, because that's another level of forward thinking, of ownership that a lot of us have not ventured into, but you stepped out on faith once again and did it. What made you decide to do that, to purchase your own property for your business?
Well, I looked at, when I do my taxes, I look at the expenses, and I'm like, okay, this is a lot of money going towards leasing, and I'm like, why should I dump all this money into a space that, you know, I'm never ever gonna own? And I started looking at, you know, possibility of owning and, you know, comparing the costs and the benefits and so on. And I thought it was okay. I need to start looking into, you know, ownership and at least at some point eventually I'll own the building. You know, I don't want to spend 5-10 years paying, and it's gonna keep going up. At least paying a mortgage, you know, pretty much for me to save. I think it works out better economically. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. So now that you started the business and you purchased the building and you've gotten your family back on track, what's next for you?
Well, I want to continue on this journey. Eventually, I want to move, you know, from behind the chair, you know, doing hair. I still will continue to do, you know, do a little bit, but not, you know, as much as I am doing now. Right. So I want to empower other women, you know, to be able to do that. So I do see other buildings in my future, other satellite salons, the natural hair dog, you know, in different states. You know, the possibilities are endless. So I do want to, you know, provide opportunities for other women who want to, you know, do their own business or do what they enjoy doing.
Are you thinking like franchise?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow. I love that you are looking at it beyond the initial property, and that you are wanting to help other women in their entrepreneurial journey. I just think that is just wonderful. What can you share with other women out there who really, quite frankly, can, you know, relate to a lot of your past experiences, who might be struggling with, you know, what to do next? How do I know what is the next right step for me? And how do I take that step to venture into something completely out of my normal? What advice would you give them?
Well, I believe that a lot of women sometimes don't realize their full capacity, you know, and the kind of strength that is in them. But sometimes we're broken down by some experiences that we've been through, you know. One of the things that pushed me to leave, in addition to the financial struggles that I went through back home, you know, because I do have a mortgage back home that I'm paying as well. As I said, I was in a career there for 11 years, so my home is there, and the mortgage is not much now, because I've been paying it for a while now. Right. But my divorce was a tough one, and it literally broke me down, almost shattered me into pieces completely. And I felt like I couldn't be in the same place, or even, you know, the same area. I just didn't want to see this person. Like, in order to cope, in order to heal, in order to better, I felt like I needed to just go, to leave. Right. So even where my house is, I left from Kingston, where I was, and I went to a different part, St. Elizabeth, which was a little bit closer to where my family is. You know, at the time, I'd already lost my mother by the time I left college. So I didn't really have, you know, that support, that motherly support. I grew up, even though I grew up with my father, just knowing that my mother was there and I could visit her and all of that. Because you have a different connection, you have a different bond, whether or not you grew up with your mother, you know. Right. There's just some things that it's easier to relate to, you know. Absolutely. There are a lot of things I don't talk about my dad with, because, you know, I just don't feel like, you know, that connection or that relation, you know, would be there. So I just keep a lot of things inside for the most part.
So with all of those changes, and those are all really big changes.
Yeah. So
How were
I
you
think
able
I
to?
was running from all of that, and I didn't want to face it, or um, I think I just kind of like, okay, there is no way out of this situation. I just have to find somewhere else because I tried doing it here in my own country. You know, I did everything what I was supposed to do. I went to school. I did good. I did good in school. I went to college. I did the career. I did everything that I was supposed to do. You know, I got married, I have kids. You know, but then like everything that I did that I was supposed to do failed. And I'm like, okay, so, all right, I tried doing everything that, you know, society tells you that, okay, this is the way to do it. But it failed. So where do I go from here? So it literally broke me down because I'm like, I didn't deserve this. I did what I was supposed to do, you know.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
so I tried everything, you know, did did everything that I thought that, you know, I should be doing, you know. So that's why I said, when I said faith, you know, I said, okay, all right. I'm the kind of person that likes to be in control. A lot of time, I think that's one of my personality trait. Like, I feel like I must plan, do this, do that, be detailed, and, you know, be in control. And then I realized, okay, at some point I came to it, like, you're not in control. It's like God was telling me, you are not the one that is in control. So at some point, I had to learn to just let go and just put myself in a position to just be used, or to say, Lord, just show me my purpose, show me the way to go.
Yes.
I'm gonna let you, and I'm gonna let go, and I'll just do what you want me to do. Not that I'm gonna just do whatever, you know, but just listen to his direction, listen to his guidance, and you just know, and somehow you just know when it's not just you wanting it, and it's the Lord wanting you to go this way, you know, because there's always like some confirmation that, okay, all right, so it's not me wanting this, because if it was me wanting this, then it would make sense. But okay, but it's not really making sense.
Right.
But I see, you know, okay, so I'm being driven, I'm being guided that way.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to express.
Yes.
But,
I know that for me, what that feels like is a push.
yeah.
It like an internal push. And I will notice that other doors start to close in my life if I'm going down the wrong path. And different opportunities will present itself, which I think is, you know, to your point earlier, that was starting to happen in your life. So those were like signs that, okay, you have to go into a new direction. But I love the fact that you're talking about surrendering. There was a point in time where all of these things happen, you know, kind of back to back.
Yeah.
And I can relate to the whole needing to be in control. And I think so many of us have that as women. And you reached a point where you had to surrender. And in the surrendering, it sounds like it gave you peace of mind, and it allowed for your life to be steered in the right direction.
Right.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is
So,
truly amazing.
yeah.
Because now you're remarried since then.
Yes. And I think now my mindset has shifted from, because I think even the career path that I took, is based on what was expected, not based on what was my real purpose. In Jamaica, it's expected you leave high school, okay, you either become a teacher or a nurse, lawyer, doctor. It was based on what was expected, not based on the fact that, okay, you scored this and you go to academic class because you're more academically inclined. If you do a skill area, then it's like, okay, that's not a real career. So at no point in time that I was looking at using my God-given gifts and talents, but because I was so focused on what society expects or what, your family expecting you to do on that path and, trying to live up to those expectations. So I think, when I came here, it was a new journey, a shifting of mindset, and learning to step out of those my comfort zone, and learning to be led and not always trying to be in control.
Right. And is it amazing?
And now, I feel fulfilled, much more fulfilled, happier with what I'm doing now. I enjoy what I'm doing now. It's a lot of work, but it's work that I enjoy doing.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that makes my heart smile for you. And there's so many takeaways from your story, but I think the resiliency and your faith definitely stand out. And it's something that I see that you still use in your life in order to keep going. And when I look at how blessed your life is and just how things have shifted and that you had the courage to shift in a different direction, which is not always easy to do, especially when you don't know the outcome, but you did it and you're here to be able to share with us. So I hope that women are inspired by your story. And also, how can they continue to follow you and to stay in contact with you on social media?
Well, I am on Instagram as Empress Toya, the Natural Hair Dog. You can Google the Natural Hair Dog.
And we'll link it.
The link to our website. And we're on Facebook as well. And our website is very, very detailed, extremely detailed. You'll see all the services that we offer.
And what is the
description? It's we use the Vagara platform. So once you Google the Natural Hair Dog, click on the website, it will take you right there. It shows a description of all our services, pictures. It shows the prices. It shows the stylist. You're able to click and book with whatever stylist you want to choose.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Latoya, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know I'm inspired, and I hope that each of you are inspired by her story as well. And I'm looking forward to continuing to stay connected to you and to follow your journey. And I sincerely wish you the best in every single area of your life, and that you continue to be blessed, because you are definitely deserving.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure sharing as well. And I do hope it inspires somebody to, find their path and their true journey, and, just live in your passion and use your gifts and natural abilities, a God-given talent. I think that's the best way, because it's not forced, it comes natural, and you really, really will find true fulfillment from doing that.
Ashe, don't forget that, ladies. It's not forced. That's a key. That's a key. That's a clue. That's how you know you're on the right path. It's not forced. All right. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And we look forward to connecting with you online.